story. When I was a younger little girl, I used to have a pool in my backyard, and it was glorious. I had a little sister. She's about 16 years old now. And one day, me and my mom and my sister, because my dad usually works, so it's usually just a girls' day, we're sitting in the backyard around the pool, and I was just laying out, getting that sun, and all of a sudden I heard a huge splash, and before I could even turn around, I heard my mom scream like I've never heard her scream before. It was like somebody dying. I turn around and nobody's on land. Everyone's underneath the water. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what happened? I'm probably 6 or 7 years old. I don't know what's going on. And so I run over to our diving board. I look in the water trying to see what's going on. My mom comes up from the water and she's got my little sister. And my heart sunk into my toes immediately. I was just like, oh my gosh, my sister almost drowned. That was just a life changer for me. It was crazy for me at a young age to witness that. Thankfully, she didn't inhale any water, so she was okay. And I just want to identify the issue today with children and drowning. Drowning is one of the most common deaths occurring in children's lives and among all people of all ages. So not just children, but people that don't know how to swim at a young age, they don't know how to swim later on, or they just choose not to even pick up swimming lessons, and they go to the beach, they go to a pool, and next thing you know, some lifeguards in there trying to get them out of the water because they don't know how to swim. So, we all have loved ones. We all have little kids in our lives. Maybe your siblings, your cousins, maybe your nieces, nephews, etc., that you want to keep safe, right? And you want them to have a good time. So when they're near, maybe they want to go to the beach, and you want to give them a good time in the water, but you want them to be safe. One thing we can do is teach them how to swim. And so that's why I feel like it's a very critical skill to learn at a young age, because that's when they absorb a lot of that basic skills. First of all, I also had a friend who had a cousin that was 3 years old, and he ended up at the bottom of the pool and drowned and died. And it was a very tragic experience for my cousin, or for my best friend, and she's going through a really emotional time. And so it doesn't affect just the person who's going through that experience. It affects everybody around them, their family, their friends, because death is not something that we want to ever have to go through or ever have to experience somebody else going through. And so I just want to give you this quote from Hoag Hospital. They actually have a big lecture every year during the summer, and I actually have to go because I'm a lifeguard from the state beach. So we go every year to kind of update our knowledge on drowning, what it does to you, if you experience a near drowning, and how long it takes for consequences to build in. So this is from Hoag Hospital. Drowning is the leading cause of unintentional injuries related death to children between the ages of 1 to 4, and the second leading cause of children at the age of 14 and under. For every kid who drowns, 4 more are hospitalized, and 20% of those are near drownings. This means that survivors will suffer permanent neurological damage. So even if they do survive, it's a miracle that even happens, but it comes with a consequence, and in the long run, they're not going to have they're not going to be that same person that you once saw before. It's going to be a sad thing to remember what happened and the effects that it has. So another reason why teaching younger kids to learn how to swim at a young age, it's just a good life lesson to know. I learned how to swim at probably the age of 1 because we had a pool in my backyard. So it was easy for me to, my parents taught me how. But a lot of people don't have that luxury, and it's pretty easy to find community pools. Maybe your neighbor has a pool or a family member that knows how to swim. Just like teach them the basic, like, oh, here, like you can doggy paddle, like that'll keep them afloat. Or I always learned how, the first thing I teach kids is how to float on their backs. And you basically just hold air in your lungs and you can float like all day long. And it also allows children to go into different fields of sports. So they can, instead of just doing dryland sports, they can explore into like kayaking or swimming or water polo, or maybe they like to dive and look at the sea creatures. Also, I was reading a website that is like a big swim lesson website, and they had this quote that I thought was pretty important, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. But it said the most important reason that swimming is good for your children to learn is because it's the only sport that can save a child's life. Now, I think that's a true quote, because if a child doesn't know how to swim and they fall into a pool, or maybe later in life they grow up and they're adults and they're at a party and people are getting drunk and nobody really knows what's going on or are very alert, and they fall in the pool, then nobody's going to help them, and they can't help themselves later in life like that. Also, one other main point is just because it's a healthy lifestyle to learn how to swim. I've known a lot of people that have gotten injured, broken bones, and have just like joint problems that exercise in the pool to help them recover faster. Because if you're on land, it's kind of difficult to do exercises that will help your bones or joints recover. So people will be in the water, and you know how it's like gravity, like you feel like you're floating. So there's no pressure on your limbs or your bones. It's also just an active lifestyle. I'm a junior guard instructor, and I've been a junior guard myself when I was younger. I started junior guards around 12 years old, and it's just a huge confidence booster when you're at that age and you know how to swim in the ocean, or like you know how to do all these things that other kids don't know how to do. It's just like I've seen in my kids that I teach at the beach, and they're just little, they think they're the coolest kids on the block because they know how to swim in the ocean. I think it's hilarious. But another one that I was reading in an article said that the Department of Health and Human Services, they were just going on about how learning how to swim can let you explore numerous ways of how to exercise, relieve stress, and all that. So to conclude, I really hope that if you guys know somebody or love somebody that doesn't know how to swim, or know anyone that has kids that don't really know how to swim, that you can persuade them from hearing what I had to say today to teach them all how to swim, and just make sure that they can be safe and have fun at the same time. Thank you.
So Jamie, what did you think?
I
really liked that you opened with a story. I think that allowed us to kind of connect with you as a speaker, and I think you really did a good job at establishing yourself and your credibility about the subject with your talking about being a lifeguard and about your kids and about just kind of the experiences that you had with drownings and your drownings in your own life, and things that have happened. I didn't really hear a preview in the intro, I don't think. That might have helped a little bit. And I think maybe some more sources might have helped. And the thing that I didn't hear, you mentioned a big swim lesson website, but I don't know what the website was. I don't know. Maybe that might have helped a little bit. But other than that, I think definitely, like, my kids, I don't think they ever really had swim lessons, and it's something that they probably really should have. So I would definitely be persuaded by that to get them swimming lessons. It's scary. So I would say I would be persuaded. So yes, effective. Yay.
All right. I think I'd agree with a lot of the things that you said. I thought you had the nice personal story at the beginning. The transition to the topic was a little bit awkward. You can be smoother on that. You do need a stronger preview and a clearer structure in the speech. For instance, there's one section where you introduce this idea that there's advantages to swimming that have to do with sports, and it feels like it, not quite out of left field, but I'm not sure why it's there in the spot that it happens to be in, and I think it would fit better if we knew it was coming and it didn't seem like it was disconnected from all the other things that you were talking about. The good stories at the beginning, I think, give you a good emotional connection with the audience, and I think you've got a later story that also does the same sort of thing, touches the emotional elements of the presentation. I heard more citation as the speech went on. I did think you could use a little bit more in that first section when you're building the need argument. Your facial expressions are nice and dramatic when you're speaking about the incidents that you were involved in. I appreciate that. You have slightly nervous feet. There's just pacing that's going on, and you need to be a little more in control. And your eye contact just seems sometimes coincidental. In other words, you're talking in front of us, and sometimes you look at us, but usually you're thinking about your story, or you're kind of emoting and performing as opposed to connecting. And I think that you need to do that a little bit more and talk to people more. All right. Like I said, I'm going to try and keep my comments